Okay, so we calculated actual quantity sold in standard mix. Okay, let me show you again. This was the total actual quantity sold, and here we calculated the standard mix. Okay, we were supposed to sell 64% of this full Valet and 36% of mini Valet, but actually what happened? Actually, what happened? We sold less of actual quantity sold in actual mix was here. We actually sold less of more profitable product and more of a least profitable product. Now tell me, write in the chat box, what would have happened to the sales mix variance? Would it be favorable or adverse? Let me calculate the difference as well. So difference is this, Control C, Control V. And I told you the overall change in the quantity would be equal to 0. There's no quantity change. There's no quantity change. The actual quantity sold is the same. Here the quantity sold and here the quantity sold is the same. Okay, there's no difference in the quantity. That due to the quantity, there's a change in the profit. That we would study in the sales mix, quantity variance. So in sales mix variance, it's only due to the change in the mix. Here what happened, we sold more of our least profitable products. So sales mix variance would be adverse. Okay. So now in here we need to calculate, in order to convert it into the monetary figure, we need to multiply it with contribution per unit. So how to get a contribution per unit? How to get a contribution per unit? Any idea how to get a contribution per unit? You are given the contribution to sales ratio. What is contribution to sales ratio? Contribution is what percentage of sales revenue. That's what the contribution to sales ratio. Like for every 10, if I say the COS ratio is 40%, that means for every selling price of 10, you're earning a contribution of 4. That basically makes 40% of 10. Okay, so we have the selling price for full Valet to be 50 and for mini Valet to be 30, and applying, we have the COS ratio for two types of Valet. This 44.6% is the contribution for full Valet and 55% is contribution sales ratio for the mini Valet. And now what I'm going to do is how to calculate the contribution per unit. So what is contribution per unit? 44 for full Valet is 44.6 divided by 100 of this selling price of 50. So contribution per unit for full Valet is 22.3. Okay, if you're not sure how actually calculated here, I can do it on the 44.6 divided by 100. That makes 0.44. This of the selling price 50 is basically 22.3. And now what would be the contribution per unit for the mini Valet? It's going to be 55% of the selling price. The selling price for mini Valet is 30. So it's going to be 16.5. Okay. So it was 0.55 of their selling prices. That's how we calculate it. And now I need to convert it, multiply contribution per unit with that difference in the quantity, and Control C and Control V, and then taking net of that, is overall a sales mix, favorable sales mix variance turned out to be favorable here. What happened here? Oh. What happened? I actually, this was supposed to be here. Okay, all of this column was supposed to be here. Controls. And this column was actual quantity sold in standard mix. As you can see in the formula, I told you actual quantity. Okay, here it's a different thing. Okay, here you need to change the values here. You need to put this at number one place. Okay, why I need to, I will tell you why. Because if you fell short, okay, this you need to put, this is what you sold, okay, and then you put this in the second place, okay, and then it would tell you whether you actually sold less or more, okay. If you the otherwise it won't tell you uh, appropriately, like now here 7980 into standard mix, I'm putting 3600 divided by 5600, okay, and here it was 79, Control C and Control V, and just I'm going to change the mix here. Actual quantity sold in standard mix. Okay, so here, as you can see that now it has been fixed, because I told you that actual quantity sold in actual mix was 4000. Okay, we were supposed to sell 5130 of full value, but we actually sold less. Okay, we sold 4000, and we were supposed to sell 2850 units of mini valley, but we actually sold more. Okay, what does that explain you? What could be the reason? I told you the economic conditions are the reason. The reason they're holding cars for longer period, because now they want to take care of car, and because they're keeping for long, so then also the disposable income is just reduced by 30%. So there is a shift in a least profitable product more. Now company, there's because I told you there's actually 99% increase in the mini value. This is because, and also there was some competitor over there that also closed the business. That could be the impact of that. So here we were supposed to sell 5130 of full value, but we actually sold 4000. So there was some less units sold, and in order to compensate that thing, we actually had to increase the sales of the other one, because overall the quantity variance needs to be zero. If this factor is not zero, that means sales mix variance is wrongly calculated. And then when you're converting into profit, here you're actually losing profit by selling less of a more profitable product. But here, when you're earning, selling more profit, least profitable product more, but actually the increase in the profit isn't more than the reduction in the profit as a result of selling 1130 units less of a full value, which was a more profitable product. So this is the reduction in the profit, and this is the increase in the profit, but overall you're losing profit. Why the overall variance is adverse? Basically, because here you're losing profit. I told you when sales mix variance is adverse. Sales mix variance here is adverse when least profitable product is sold more and more profitable product is sold less. That's exactly what happened here. That more profitable product was this. It was sold more because it has more contribution, and less profitable product is actually sold more. Now let's quickly calculate, and also we did the analysis that what we are going to discuss about it in part C as well, that what was the reason of that change in the mix that I told you. So now let's do it a quick, real quick. I'm just going to copy everything I just did here, Control C and Control V, and then I'm just going to okay. Actual quantity sold in standard mix minus standard quantity sold in standard mix. What do you think is standard quantity sold in standard mix? standard quantity sold in standard mix is basically your budgeted quantity. Here you need to take the budgeted quantity here. And this column is going to be the same, which is actual quantity sold in actual quantity sold in actual mix. Okay, and here you need to take the standard quantity sold in standard mix. Okay, so consider this as actual. Put always, whenever you're calculating the sales variances, okay, put actual first and then the budgeted figure. So consider this as actual figure and this as the budgeted figure. Here as well, we put the actual figure first, which was actual quantity sold and actual mix, and budgeted figure the next, so that we actually know whether we sold less or more. Otherwise it's going to be a favorable thing. Okay, so here as well, this actual I put here and then I put the budgeted here, and I have done nothing else. I'm just going to update these two things. And what are those things going to be? The standard quantity sold in standard mix is basically your budgeted quantity, and actual quantity sold in standard mix I've already calculated from my sales mix variance. It was already copied there. So now I'm just going to change the value 3600 for full value and 2000, and then see the result. 3600 for full value, that was the budgeted quantity sold, and 2000 for mini value. So what actually happened here, I was supposed to sell 4000 units for full value, sorry, 3600 units for full value, but I actually sold 4000 units. Okay, which is a good thing, which is a favorable thing. But I was supposed to sell 2000 units of mini value, but actually sold 3980. So what would happen? What would happen? I was supposed to sell total units, 5600 total units for both, okay, but I actually sold 7980. Actually sold more quantity. Overall, what is the change in the quantity? Overall, the increase in the volume is also there, which is basically 7980 minus 5600 divided by 5600. Overall, there is an increase in the volume, 42.5% increase in the volume as well. Okay, and I actually sold 400 more units here, 1980 more units here, and that gave me more profit from full value of 8920 as compared to the budget, and more profit of 32670 as compared to the budget. And overall my sales quantity variance was a favorable figure. My sales mix variance was adverse because there was a change in the mix. I was selling more of a least profitable product as compared to full profitable product. Full value, which was a more profitable product. So here I lost some profit here, and the net figure was there was some loss of profit due to the change in the actual mix than that of the standard mix. But here my volume variance was, sorry, sales quantity variance here was favorable. Now what could be? Since it was mini wallet was cheap, okay, so customers went for mini wallet more, but yeah, see, full value also increased. There was increase 11.1% increase as well, which is not a bad thing here, but it is justified. Why sales mix variance was adverse? It is justified. It is because due to the financial situation, due to the economic situation in the Strapia area, that their disposable income was also reduced. And what else could be the increase in the overall increase in the quantity? Overall increase in the quantity was also one of the competitor also closed down. So maybe they've got their business as well. So here in this part is just a theoretical part. It's a knowledge-based question. You just need to discuss. We are done with this, okay? And here you need to discuss the sales performance for the period. Okay, overall, if I see what is the sales volume variance, overall the sales volume variance, let's just calculate. This is the sales mix variance and this is the sales volume variance. If you can see that if I net off this figure, okay, it's so sales volume variance is a favorable thing. From here, you can see the sales performance, despite the difficulties, despite the bad economic conditions, even then company was able to sell more units than the budget. Individually 11.1 of fully valid, 99%. So I was telling you about the strategy for C. First you calculate and then you make a comment, just I did, that there was an increase, 99% increase in the full mini valley and 11.1% increase in the full valley. And overall, if you can see the overall increase in the revenue, I can also calculate from here just to assess the performance. And you could also explain that overall volume variance is a favorable. That indicates a very good performance for Strapia, even because of the bad economic conditions. Only one thing, that sales mix variance is adverse. That can also be explained due to a lot of economic factors prevailing in the Strapia area. Okay. So this is how calculate, comment, and then strategy, and in the end you need to discuss. Okay, and there's a quick technique as well. Whenever you're doing the interpretation question of variances, first you calculate the variance and then you identify the reason, and then you see whether there is any interdependence. Okay, whether there is an interdependence. Here there was also an interdependence, because sales mix variance was adverse, that we were selling more of a mini valley, which was a cheap product. That may be was the reason that why mini valid variance individually was favorable. As you can see that 32.6 was favorable because it was cheap and it was sold more. So there's also an interdependence as well. And whenever you're talking about the impact, individual variances are important, that explain, but you have to calculate the impact of the net variance. So here you tell that the net variance, the sales volume variance, which is the sum of sales mix and sales price variance, was a favorable thing. That also means that the performance was favorable. And one more thing I need to calculate, then I'm going to take you to the standard answer. And this is your homework, that you have to do the part C and send the sheet to me. Okay, Word share in the Word document, just send it to me. So the net of sales variance was a favorable thing. Okay, here I could also calculate the increase in the revenues. As you can see that there is an increase in the revenue. Yes, the revenue here as compared to the budget. Okay, there's an increase in the revenue of 319 current figure minus base figure 2,40,000 divided by the base figure 2,40,000. Yeah, there is 33.08. In the comment you need to calculate the percentages. That would give you an idea. You could talk about all of these figures that are just calculated here. There was 3.8% increase in the revenue. Okay, that could be explained by 95% increase in the mini valley and 11.1% increase in the full valley. Then you could discuss about the net impact, that overall it was volume variance, and then individually what could be the reason of the adverse variance. And then you need to, don't give the general statements, don't do any guesses. Okay, just everything you need to make paragraphs and discuss about all these things, and just connect your just connect everything with the exhibits given in the question while explaining the answer. I'm going to show you. So this was the adverse variance, this was the favorable variance, a little description, just definition, that's it, definition, and one line explanation. You could explain that, that would give you 2 marks. Okay, and always allocate the time in the reading and planning time. Always while reading the question, just allocate the time. Like this was 2 marks as per 1.5 mark per 1.5 minute per mark rule. You have 3 minutes to do this part. Okay, and what is the marking scheme for this calculation part? You should have done it in these are 8. Okay, 8 into 1.5, it should have been done in 12 minutes. So that's going to leave you in total, that's going to leave you with some reading and planning time. And in the reading and planning time, you could do the calculation like I did here, this here, overall increase in the revenue. I could calculate pretty fast. I could go through the exhibit of the question and underline it, so that, and mention the part number that this relates to part C, and I have to do the discussion. So planning your time is really very good in order to do a question successfully. So now part C, see how they are going to discuss it now. The sales performance of the business has been very good over the last year, as shown by the favorable sales quantity variance of 48144. Okay, they didn't talk about the net variances, I should have started from the net variance. Okay, if I had your answer could be different, but as far as you, it could be different from the standard answer to, could be different from the examiner answer. Like I'm a different person, I could think differently, but overall if your point is logical, this could give you equal credit, equal marks. Okay, I should have started with the sales volume variance if I were you. Okay, and the examiner didn't start from there, it's directly started from the quantity variance, but that gives me a more idea that even by netting of sales mix and sales quantity variance, I get a favorable sales volume variance. And then I could explain, uh, uh, start explaining, and overall total sales revenue is 33% higher than the budget, and also just show the workings. You did it on the calculator, but the examiner doesn't know. While you're writing the answer in paragraphs, you also explain how you calculated this figure of 33%. I did it here, right in front of you on the calculator, but the examiner doesn't know. So just in the bracket, just tell how you have come to that figure. This is because of a higher total number of valet being performed. When you look at where the difference in sales quantity arise, you can see from the data in the question that it is the number of mini valet which is substantially higher. That makes 99%. I also did that working. Just explain that while you're writing how you calculated it. Current figure minus base figure divided by base, higher than the budget. Whereas number of full value is only 11%, which is still a positive thing. Okay, that even due to bad economic conditions, you were able to sell more. The fact that the number of mini wallets so much higher, combined with the fact that they generate a lower contribution per unit, which is 16.5 than the full value, led to an, now they're explaining what is the reason for adverse sales mix variance. Yeah, this cannot be overlooked at in isolation. This is itself is not a bad thing. Okay, this cannot be can be looked at in isolation as a sign of poor performance. It doesn't indicate a poor performance. It is simply reflective of the changes which have occurred in Strapia. We are told that the disposable income in Strapia have decreased. If you are not going to mention all these points that I've highlighted here, you would lose easy marks. Look, it was over there. You could have connected your answer, could have provided that explanation in the discussion scenario. You did calculation, you make a comment, write comment, there was increase and decrease of all that. But while discussing, you need to link the answer with that of this scenario. That's how the examiner is doing it now. That means the people have less money to spend on non-essential expenditures such as car valeting. I told you they've got important expenditure is petrol, food, education. Okay, so this it's a non-essential thing. So definitely they can't afford the full valet. That's why they went for the mini valet more. That's why the sales for mini valet was more. That was the reason of the adverse sales mix variance. So they're opting for the cheaper mini valet rather than the full expensive valet. At the same time, we're also told that people are keeping their cars for an average. That's another point I got from the scenario. 5 years now, as opposed to 3 years. This may be leading them to taking care of more and get them valeted regularly because they know that the car has to be kept for a longer period of time. Thus, the total quantity of valet is higher than expected, particularly for mini valet. That here they're talking about the interdependence of the variance. Quick technique. Interdependence. I told you adverse variance could give rise to favorable quantity variance. That would happen in the case of mini valet. If it overall it was adverse, but overall the quantity sold was more than the standard. Also, there is now one less competitive of mini valet. That's another thing from the scenario that you would do in the discussion part after calculation, comment in the discussion. That is another thing that you're going to do that. Also, there's now one less competitor than it was a year ago. Okay, so Valet Co may have gained some of the old competitors' business. Together, all these factors would explain the higher number of total valet being performed. In particular, so this is how. That's it. That's it. This is how you're going to do this question. And this discussion was 10 marks. It was actually, you had more marks for the discussion, and the discussion wasn't that difficult. Discussion wasn't that difficult. Into 1.5 you had 15 minutes. Okay, you had 15 minutes for that. That's it. That's it. Any question? This question should have been done in within 36 minutes. Within 36 minutes. Okay. The calculation part was easy. Once you're done with sales mix variance, you just copy paste it down and just make this change here. Just take the budgeted figures here, budgeted sales units, and you would automatically it would calculate the sales quantity variance. But always remember to put the actual figures first and then the budgeted figures. Usually in cost calculation, we put budgeted figures first and then the actual figure so that we know that adverse variance means that actual cost was more than the standard. Okay. But here, if I want a favorable profit thing, a favorable unit sold, I need to put the actual, for example, sales volume variance. It's going to be calculated as actual units minus budgeted units sold into standard profit per unit. Why I would do that? Because if actual are more, it would give me an adverse figure. If I put, like for example, uh, actual budget was 1,000 and actual was 1,200, and when I'm going to take the difference of this with this, it's going to give me a negative figure. But instead, I would have put actual here because it's favorable. Actual is more and budget was less, so the volume variance should be favorable in this case. So that's why. But when you're doing the cost, for example, 1,000 is the cost and the actual cost, budgeted cost was 1,000, actual cost is 2,000. Here I need to put budget first and then actual so that I know that I've actually overspent. My variance is adverse in this case. But here this would give me a favorable thing if I'm going to put actual first and then the budget. So cost and revenue, it gets change. So always remember when you're calculating sales variance, put actual first and then the budget like this. So any questions up till now? Any questions? Don't put budget first, put actual figure first and then the second figure budget. Actual less budget. Here as well, actual less budget. So budget standard quantity sold in standard mix I put in the second and then actual quantity sold in standard mix. It was the same as the first column of the sales mix variance. Okay, I didn't change that. The first column of sales mix variance is actually the first column of the sales quantity variance, as you can see that here. The first column of the sales mix variance, which is actual quantity sold in actual mix, is actually the first column of the sales quantity variance, actual quantity sold in actual mix. Okay, that's it. Any questions? We're done for today. Any questions you may ask me now. Yes, please. Any questions? Okay. Completely understood each and everything, everyone. Now you know what is the reason of sales mix variance to be adverse, because you sold a least profitable product more and you have deviated from your sales mix in such a way that you're selling least profitable more. That's what makes the sales mix variance to be adverse. And then favorable would happen when you're selling more profitable product more. Okay. Okay. Sales quantity variance. Okay. Okay. That's it. Thank you.